Back in the late 90s, Sega was on fire in the arcades, blasting out unforgettable experiences like Planet Harriers and Star Wars Trilogy Arcade. But when the Dreamcast launched, a lot of those games never made it home. Today on the My Retro Life podcast, we're looking back at the Sega arcade games that should have come to the Dreamcast, but didn't, and what we lost because of it. For an uncut audio version of this podcast, head on over to patreon.com/myretrolife or click the join button right here on YouTube. What would you say is the one? We'll start with this.
The one that got away?
What's the one that got away? What's the one that you'd say on the top of your list is like the one you're like, oh, this is the one I wanted to come home and play in my house?
For me, it was probably... strangely, Sega Super GT. That one was one that so it was the first time I ever saw Model 3. I think it was the first, it was actually the second game that came out on Model 3, the first one being Virtua Fighter 3. So it came out in 1996, and, we'd never really gotten a taste. And, the thing is, just to kind of go back a little bit, but in the 90s, Sega was the king of the arcade. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we talked a lot about the Sega arcade rather than, some of the Namco or Konami games. But the Sega games were so much further ahead in terms of technology and everything that it was definitely got me wanting them more so home than other competitors. But Sega Super GT was the first time I laid eyes on Model 3, and I remember reading about it in magazines. I remember seeing the screenshots of Virtua Fighter 3, and then by the time it came around to actually seeing it for the first time, I was just floored. And it was at our local Walmart, just literally right down the street from us. We would go walk to this Walmart even with no money. I mean, I was probably about 12, something like that.
Yeah, we were probably about 12.
We would go to Walmart and just sit there, watch it over and over, just the attract mode. And, they at least had to where, they'd have a little tutorial where you could at least push the buttons to see the different
views. The camera angles.
Angles.
Yeah, I think that was for all the racing games, but yeah, so we would at least do that. But of course, I played it quite a few times. But we would literally just walk down there just to go check out the Model 3. Just to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't driving at that time, so we couldn't drive to anywhere that actually had a Model 3 arcade. Or Virtua Fighter 3 is the main game we actually wanted to see, but that was the only thing that was available to us in our immediate, area. So we just went over there, just watched it, and the graphics blew us away.
Yeah, the graphics were amazing. They have the first stage, which has this super cool tunnel that goes underneath water. They have these really impressive graphics on the waterfalls and one of the stages. A really cool night stage. I mean, the color palette that was used in these games was really fantastic, and it just had a really cool style to it. And the polygon count was so high, and it was the first time seeing those really smoothed out textures.
I mean, it was really the
60
first
frames per second as well.
It was really the first time we saw next gen graphics because everything before that was N64. It was 64-bit. This was the first time we actually really saw 128-bit.
Before you saw stuff like Virtua Fighter 3.
Oh yeah.
Even motion, yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so
that one I can see where that would have left a huge impact.
Oh yeah, especially if it was years before the Dreamcast even came out.
Yeah,
so it's just
this
blew us
is
away.
the future.
Yeah, so I remember reading a magazine where they were talking about Sega's next 128-bit system, and I was the first thing that popped in my mind was I get to actually take Sega Super GT home, and then this was before I even
it seems kind of like a layup.
So you were dreaming of this game for the Dreamcast.
Yeah, exactly. Really. Daydreaming about having it on my screen at home for sure. But yeah,
it just seemed like such an obvious thing because the game was already I guess we didn't really know that Model 3 wasn't really the Dreamcast architecture. It was more based off of the Naomi. Okay, so there was more of a porting process they would have had to have done. And maybe Sega Super GT wasn't really a system seller like Virtua Fighter 3. So I think that's why they didn't actually end up porting it, because there was quite a bit of work that would have to go into it.
But one game that was a similar game was Daytona USA 2.
Yeah, Daytona 2. That was one that I specifically always wanted on the Dreamcast, and it was a no-brainer to me. I thought, well, yeah, Daytona is one of their flagship, racing games. It was on the Saturn. It was amazing on the Saturn.
Multiple ports on the Saturn too.
Where's the Dreamcast one? And then we got the port of the original, and on the Dreamcast, but not Daytona 2.
Yeah, I mean, even Sega Rally 2 got a port, but Daytona didn't. And then, arguably, like, Daytona is even more popular than Sega Rally.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a strange one to me. I never quite understood why that, and that was definitely on my list.
A new winner!
Well, going in line with Sega Super GT is definitely my pick, and this is on the top of my list for sure. I couldn't believe that this never came home. Like, it drove me nuts that we didn't get this on the Dreamcast, and that is Star Wars Trilogy Arcade. I mean, that thing, I played that. I remember playing it all the time at Tilt at First Colony Mall. I would specifically go to Tilt at First Colony Mall just to play this game because they had it. I knew they had it, and I would base an entire trip around that game and zeroing in on it. And I remember once bringing a lot of quarters and playing that until completion. And the fact that it was such a great representation of Star Wars at that point, man, I think the game came out before the new prequel or the prequels.
It came out before it was in between the special editions and the prequel.
Yeah, it was in between. Yeah. So we were just like, there was a fervor for Star Wars. It had reached a fever pitch for us fans of Star Wars. You combine that with your love of Sega, and it's like, oh my gosh.
And Model 3 specifically.
And Model 3 board. Oh my gosh. Like, I thought it would get a port. I really did.
Yeah, I know.
And I kept waiting for it, and it never came. I mean, I remember playing that in the arcade all the way up until the end when you're fighting Darth Vader in the first person point of view with the lightsaber.
That was awesome.
Oh man, and just the controls, the way it worked
with the joystick.
Yeah, you could use the joystick like a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it pretty much worked perfect too. You know, it's just I think that might be one of the reasons why they didn't actually port it is because the way the controller worked it didn't maybe translate as well to like an analog stick or something like that.
Well, I thought maybe
they could have
would
figured
use like
something
the Sega bass fishing controller.
yeah.
That would have been awesome. If they had
just
figured out a way.
Yeah.
I would dream up these scenarios like, okay, how are they going to get it to be ported? But it never happened. And that one still stings. I can't believe it. I think back on that game. I'm like,
yeah, especially since it was like because you had like other Star Wars games that came out like Shadows of the Empire, and they also had like a Hoth sequence, and it just looked so much like it ran at 60 frames per second, higher polygon, had better textures. It was like a way better representation of the actual battle in the movie. And that entire game was just like such an accurate representation of the original trilogy. It was like there's nothing extra. It was just focused completely on the original trilogy.
There was no other game at that point that immersed you so much into Star Wars and the movies.
Yeah, it just focused on all of the highlights of the of the entire trilogy. Yeah. So it's just like the best parts of it were just put into a game. The graphics were mind blowing. It came out. It was another way to see what the next gen systems were going to look like.
Right, and I think because we had Star Wars Arcade on the 32X.
Yep,
and like I really thought like, oh, it's going to come. I just kept waiting for it. And never came. Sega.
Yeah, I think that would have been the best.
Up with you guys.
I think that would have been the best Star Wars game to bring to consoles.
Yeah, I really did.
Especially whenever all of the other ones I felt like were a little bit mediocre. I mean, I think Shadows of the Empire was really good, but
Shadows was great.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, you got one for us?
So I would probably say Sonic the Fighters because me and Sean were both huge Virtua Fighter fans, AM2 fans. We love fighting Vipers, Fighters Megamix, stuff like that. And we heard that they were making a Sonic fighting game, and we were big Sonic fans, of course. So just everything was hand in hand, So we that was a game we were actually really looking forward to, and we didn't really get a chance to play it too much because I think my dad drove us over to Super Track a few times. They had it there, and I felt like whenever we played it, we were already kind of good at it because it was just the same button layout as Virtua Fighter, a lot of the same moves. It had all the characters from all of Sonic Triple Trouble and stuff like that. So it's a really good way for people to kind of get introduced to some of the Sonic characters that they didn't know about too. So
I couldn't believe that it never came to. I was waiting for it to come out on the Saturn because I feel like that's around the time
I think that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and so like I remember Virtua Fighter Kids came out on the Saturn. We had all those games you mentioned, Fighting Vipers,
Last Bronx,
Fighters Megamix. I mean, all those AM2 fighting games were coming to the Saturn. So I mean, and this was Sonic.
Yeah, well, actually,
and we were waiting for a great Sonic
Yeah,
game
no,
on Sega Saturn.
It's the 3D one too.
Yeah, no, we missed out on. I thought after we were denied Sonic Extreme, we were at least going to get this game.
At least, right?
Just left with Sonic R.
Yeah, yeah.
Sonic R. I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Sonic.
Yeah,
R.
Sonic R's okay.
It's okay.
Sonic Jam, Sonic R, 3D Blast.
Yeah.
Those all came to Saturn.
Those were good. I think AM2. I mean, since they were the developer, they were like the lead developer at Sega at the time, and you would think that they would just have the tools. They'd already ported Virtua Fighter, all of their Model 2 games. So you would think that would be easy for them to port that over.
I think they were in the middle of porting it because a couple of characters did make their way into Fighters Megamix.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing. We played Fighters Megamix, and it had characters from it in there. So it was like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, no.
What are you waiting for? Yeah, I remember that was so frustrating for me. That was a big one.
It was almost like a tease, just like
major tease.
Yeah.
Major tease. And then it didn't come to Dreamcast either.
Yeah.
It's like they could have had a souped up port on Dreamcast.
Yeah.
We had to wait for Sonic Gems.
Yeah.
We had to wait for Nintendo to do it. I mean, come on, Sega.
Yeah.
Come on. This is why you failed. Sega. This is the main reason. So another one that I really felt like could have been perfect on the Dreamcast because it was that era was Top Skater, the skateboarding game, and in the arcade you actually were you controlled on a skateboard.
Mm-hmm.
You jumped on a skateboard that was there in front of the cabinet.
You'd flick it up with the back foot.
Yeah. It was so cool. I mean, Sega was innovating with this stuff. I mean, this is why they were known as the innovators, and their whole thing at Disney was innovations. I mean, that whole the exhibit that they had there at Disney. Top Skater is a pure example of what Sega was pushing with games, like just pushing the boundaries. I don't remember loving the game per se because I actually was really bad at it, but I liked trying it a lot.
Yeah.
I liked playing it a lot. The controls it was so ahead of its time for those controls with the skateboard. I mean, trying to do that, and I don't think they had perfected it quite yet with that. But I wasn't very good at it, but I loved trying it. What about you guys?
Well, even a friend of mine who was like an avid skateboarder, we went to Baybrook Mall, and they had it there, and he got on there, and he was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna rock at this game," and he just absolutely sucked at it. And so I think it was a pretty difficult game.
It was difficult.
Did he face plant?
Yeah.
Somehow
He just
fell off the skateboard. And
I think he got like the worst possible score you could get or something. I don't know. He just did terrible. But, I feel like it was just more gamers that were good at it, better even than the skaters. So it's like a way to kind of show off to your skating friends or something. But I remember I actually played it. There's a place called the Game Preserve that actually has the arcade there.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And I played it like I want to say a couple of months ago, and I still sucked at it. I thought I'm older, better now, but no.
Older, wiser.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, the game is just hard, and it's designed to suck your quarters. That's all.
I'm older and wiser, and I'm wise enough to know I will still be terrible.
Yeah, no, there you go. Yeah, but the graphics were amazing on it. They really were. They really were. Yeah, man,
and it came out in that whole era where skateboarding
yeah.
was like the rage.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Tech Decks and Tony Hawk.
Do you remember Street Skater for PS1? It was a game that was in the same exact vein. It came out before Tony Hawk. It was kind of like
I do remember that vaguely.
Yeah.
Did that play like ESPN?
Yeah, it was kind of like Too Extreme.
Like Too Extreme,
yeah. So it was like that. It was a bit more updated. Looked like the art style was even more similar to Top Skater. I was like, why not release the Sega? What are you doing, Sega? But like they just didn't. Like their competition was releasing all these games, and then they wouldn't. But I don't know. It seemed like there was a place for it on the either the Saturn or the Dreamcast. Probably the Dreamcast if they wanted to be because it was a Model 2 game.
It was 60 frames.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Planet Harriers.
Planet Harriers. That one, it boggles my mind because as a big Space Harrier fan, I mean, huge. It's one of my favorite games ever, especially arcade. I think I could actually say Space Harrier is my favorite arcade game. I wish I owned a cabinet, maybe one day. But Planet Harriers, again, I feel like we're talking a lot about the Dreamcast, and for good reason. There were so many games that could have been, and the Dreamcast was short-lived, so maybe we would have seen some of these had it lived longer. But Planet Harriers, it was a Space Harrier sequel without being called Space Harrier 3 or
more of like a spiritual sequel or something.
More like a spiritual sequel. You could play as different Harriers. You could actually select different characters, and man, the thing was beautiful. It ran at 60 frames per second. It was that next-gen Space Harrier game that, for fans of that series, you were waiting for it.
Yeah.
And and I know I was waiting for it. I really wanted it to come to the Dreamcast, along with some of the other games we didn't get on Dreamcast that were even not arcade games, like Toe Jam and Roll 3. I was waiting for that too. But
Planet Harriers was such a beautiful game. It ran on what was it?
I think it was Naomi.
No, it was actually a different
Hikaru.
Hikaru, Hikaru board, which was like a souped up Naomi 1, and the technology there. I mean, you can really see like with some of the lighting effects and some of the draw distance, like some of the stuff going on in the far background was like stuff that couldn't be been done on Dreamcast. But I'm sure they could have figured a way to, downsize it slightly. It's not even like it was that much, ahead. But yeah, I don't know. That game just looks so beautiful. The art design. I mean, even remember in the original game where you kind of touch the ground and you start running and you still play it? They had that in this game, but you kind of go into like this different mode.
Dirt,
it's just like really low angle and it looks like you almost go into a completely different playing mode.
Like they were taking complete advantage of it being just 3D and just having like all these crazy camera angles and stuff.
It was
like
definitely the
super cool.
evolution of Space Harrier series, and this is what you wanted to see from Sega with their new games on the Dreamcast. And sadly, the Dreamcast died, and we never got around to seeing these. So
they could have still brought them to like GameCube or Xbox too. I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't have. They had every opportunity to do that.
The games are already made. All you got to do is just kind of more or less just port it over. It just seems like it would be an easy thing to do.
It really is a mystery as to why Sega did not release some of these games on their consoles over the years. It's crazy, and it's something that has plagued us, I think, as Sega fans. It lives rent-free in our heads why Sega did not release these games. And so, Sega, if you're watching, give us some great home ports. I mean, I say this all the time. You're sitting on... You can just print money, Sega. There's so much stuff out there you never released. It's like I'm actually talking. Like, if anybody's actually listening to this, I doubt it. But hey, if you are, please...
Yeah, don't force us to buy like Naomi 2 boards for like $800 on eBay. That'd be nice.
Man, I think I was getting that for Christmas.
I want to thank my friends Brian and Shaun Kennedy for coming on this episode of the My Retro Life podcast. If you want to hear an uncut audio version of this episode, head on over to patreon.com/myretrolife or click the join button right here on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for watching today. Catch you next time.